In the American justice system, there is the concept of racketeer, influenced, and corrupt organizations. It's a law from 1970 that allows not only the perpetrators of a crime to be held accountable, but also the leaders of criminal organizations. That means people are prosecuted for criminal schemes, not just for a single specific incident. You will be very pleased with the latest decision of the Trump administration on this matter, but there is also, as they say, a downside. Gathering evidence for racketeering, fraud, bribery, money laundering, and corruption into one overall scheme is a very long and painstaking job. It's difficult. You need to have people who would turn in the leaders. Then it's easier, as they say, to look for the positive side. This punishment will be much more serious than under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. And a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations case is not a case with serious consequences. This requires a lot of evidence and proof of connections, orders, with a chain of executors going all the way to the top of the organization. And in the next 20 minutes, I'll tell you how fraud in Minnesota, corruption in California, and even fraudulent elections in Washington state ended up being connected. And so, those who organized, carried out, and financed all of this are facing this very thing. Racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations. Racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations.
The largest case of tax fraud ever recorded in the history of the United States. This is what's unfolding right now before our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. $1 billion in fraud here, $3 billion there. Literally every stone they turn over only reveals more and more fraud. And while the main focus is on Minnesota right now, believe me when I tell you this, fraud on this scale has been happening in every single state in the country.
After 4 years of encouraging the plundering of America, Trump's Justice Department is working to unravel a web of truly disgusting crimes committed against our children, our sick, our elderly, and our disabled. Thank God among the ranks of American journalists, there are some who want to get to the truth, not hide it. If a crime is committed by our side, look at the independent journalist who went around Minnesota, visiting the addresses where the state sent millions for treatment, care, feeding orphans, the terminally ill, and to kindergartens. He went around asking them to accept his son. Now take a look at what came out of it.
This is the quality of 2020. So this is a Center for Quality Education. I meant to say a Center for Quality Education.
Just to clarify about the sign, it means this is a high-level training center, but there's a small problem. The word training in English is spelled incorrectly, like a training center.
So we arrived at the ABC Training Center. All the windows are completely darkened. I would like to check my child into the kindergarten. I would like to bring little Joey, my son, here. Are there any documents, or can I take a look at the kindergarten?
This year you received 2.66 million, and last year
2.5 million.
We just want to know where the children are.
Hello. I wanted to ask where the money is going.
No children, no conditions for accepting children, nothing at all. This year, $2.6 million were received by this very center, which was stolen by the state of Minnesota from its residents and handed over to these so-called educators of future generations. To understand the scale of the robbery that the Democratic Party of Minnesota organized with the help of the Somalis, listen to this.
Massive fraud is happening in Minnesota, especially Minneapolis. What's going on with the kindergartens?
So what I've noticed is a huge number of childcare centers that are open mainly in Minneapolis, but also in St. Paul. And I thought, wow, really? I mean, how many kids are there in the Twin Cities? Some of them were near my office, and I looked and said, well, there aren't any kids there. And I went to another one, and there weren't any kids there either. And I just saw some guys with masks smoking cigarettes outside. I stopped by and said, hey, I'm curious. My grandson needs a kindergarten, and this looks like a good place. They said, no, we're full, but the door was open. I looked inside and there were no kids, just a couch and a table with a couple of chairs. And I asked, so are the kids playing in the backyard or what? What kind of place is this anyway? And that guy said, go, go, and he almost pushed me out the door, then followed me down the street to my car. And that's when I thought, yeah, wait a minute, something's not right here. That was around 15 years ago. This is just a colossal fraud. And when it all settles down, it will be recognized as the greatest fraud in the history of this country and possibly the whole world. It's so massive.
The biggest, he says, fraud in the United States and possibly in the world. Thank you.
The ones I got data on average, it's about 2.5 million a year. And many of them say they have between 80 and 120 children. I visited 40 or 50 of these kindergartens and never saw a single child there. Morning, afternoon, evening. Some claim they're open until 10 p.m., but whenever I visit, morning, afternoon, or even at 9 p.m., there's never anyone there, not even children.
So basically, fraudulent operations set up at the container. When we talk about millions of migrants from another culture entering the United States, we mean that if honesty is a quality we view positively in the United States, then for 90% of the world's population, honesty is good. Only within the family or tribe. All outsiders should be robbed, that's a virtue. On the contrary, stealing from and lying to outsiders is good. Stabbing them in the back is just wonderful, that's honor and dignity. Here they are, not just individually, when you can still retrain the residents, at least so they can see how people live around them and start copying it in an American way. But if they come to the States, there are 100,000, but if there are millions, they bring their own culture, their own habits, their own way of life with them. And we see the results. We see, I haven't even mentioned, the continuation of the understanding of freedom, morality, respect simply for a person, just because they are a person. But why did the Democratic Party of the United States need to bring in all these foreign alien migrants? It's their idea to replace the citizens fleeing from democratic states with illiterate thieves, bandits, and Somali pirates in order to stay in power. I've already explained several times how non-citizens help Democrats win congressional elections.
But actually, Elon Musk talked about all of this quite recently. Let's take a look. The biggest protest will come from the Democrats who don't want this path to be blocked because it's a huge magnet for attracting illegal immigrants and keeping them in the country. You see strange things like how Federal Emergency Management Agency money, which should be used for emergencies, gets misused. Federal Emergency Management Agency is an agency. It's meant to take care of Americans in trouble, and a significant portion of their money was going to pay for luxury hotels in New York for illegal immigrants. And this was happening even after the president was elected and even after he signed an order saying that this should stop. We made sure the money stopped going there because it's obvious. It's outrageous that United States taxpayers fund luxury hotels for illegals, but why is this happening? Because the Democrats are basically trying to immigrate to import voters.
Yes, I agree with that.
The Democrats, said Musk, were importing voters for those who gave them donors and, as it turned out, let them plunder our country.
And that's why voter identification is not required.
In fact, in both California and New York, you are not allowed to show voter identification. That seems crazy to me.
Crazy, especially for a New Yorker.
That's how I feel.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah, it's crazy, and honestly, that's putting it mildly, in my opinion. But you know what? Besides all the fraud and all the illegals voting in our elections, the whole situation is actually getting even worse. Because now we've got confirmation that most of the money these scammers stole from the federal government was actually donated to the political campaigns of other far-left immigrant political candidates. Actually, all of this is public information. We now know that several of these daycare centers in Minnesota were actually laundering money for various other far-left immigrant candidates in other states. Right now, you're looking at campaign donations from various Minnesota daycare centers to an immigrant candidate. In King County, Washington, more than 1,600 miles from here. Simply put, friends, our money is being stolen by immigrants from third world countries and then used to further destroy our own country.
I'll add to that, part of this stolen money was sent to Al-Qaeda in Somalia, and it was used to fight against America and, of course, Israel, meaning that we were subsidizing the killing of Jews in Israel. Continuation? Well, thank you very much to the Democratic Party of the United States of America.
Fortunately, as I mentioned earlier, over the past 24 hours, we've actually seen numerous independent reports confirming that Trump's Justice Department, as well as Trump's FBI, are preparing to crack down on all of this. In fact, there are rumors that they're actually building a huge case, Rick, to hold everyone accountable.
When they say racketeer, influenced, and corrupt organizations, it means everyone. Those who gave the money, like Soros and other billionaires. Those who came up with the plan, like the Democratic Party headquarters, and those who carried it out.
To be continued. Will it turn into legalized theft, or what should be done about it? Well, they say it's to build roads and provide national defense, but that's all a lie. It's so that you can be replaced, so that the children of immigrants or people who are completely foreign to this land, who don't want to assimilate and don't want to become Americans, can take your place, so that they get your money through fraudulent payouts, and in return, they'll make sure the Democrats get elected. That's how the system works. That's what was exposed.
That's how they do it right under our noses. For 8 years, Obama built a system to turn the United States into a one-party country of a happy future.
Drawn in New York. As the New York Times writes, that's how impossible it is to ignore this fraud. This is the internet's most viral story.
Right now, the New York Times ignored it. As much as they could, they broke down, started betraying their own because they began to get arrested. And not just one or two, but already 59 people. And for fraud cases, and I think another 20 or 30 cases are ongoing right now. To be continued.
Dozens of people, 59 in total, were convicted for fraudulent schemes, all of them Somalis, and they stole billions of federal dollars. It was rampant theft. This is obviously increasing every day. You can go and check the Department of Justice website right now. 6 additional defendants who pleaded guilty, 78 different indictments for those who hack, steal, and exploit payment systems like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and COVID programs. You know, you start to think, wait a minute, we brought people here from a fraudulent society from Somalia, which is a failed society, a completely and absolutely corrupt country with a high rate of inbreeding, child brides, sick customs, Sharia laws, tribal wars, total and absolute collapse, absolute looting and theft in every corner of the country. And we don't expect that to happen here?
What we've been talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is that we bring them here, and they bring to us, they drag in their way of life, their style of existence. 4 years ago, when all of this was flourishing and millions were leaving the country, what was the FBI doing that took up all their time and attention?
4 years ago, the defendants in the January 6 case were subjected to full-scale FBI tactical raids with full gear. They were conducting searches at Donald Trump's house in Mar-a-Lago. Republicans were thrown in jail for 22, 23, 25 years just for protesting the election. The Democrats are real monsters when it comes to things like this, and the Republicans are mice. And this morning, I called the FBI, I called a high-ranking FBI official, and we had a conversation. I asked, listen, is anything going to happen here? And here's the answer I got. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. I'll just lay out what's happening, and I guess let the actions speak for themselves. This was told to me by someone from the top management of the FBI who has an impeccable track record in predicting what the agency is about to do. I was told that life is going to get very, very bad for Somali scammers and their accomplices. And they pointed out to me again the ongoing investigations and prosecutions of other Somali scammers, saying that this is really happening right now. This FBI source told me that they have significantly strengthened the investigative and criminal divisions in Minneapolis and that public arrests of Somali scammers will happen soon. They stated that they are aware of the viral video of Nico Shirley and that it matches the current criminal work of the FBI in that area. This is an exact quote. Billions of stolen federal dollars and fraudulent enterprises are serious federal crimes that can lead to large fines, decades in prison, and potential deportation. They should lead to loss of citizenship. You should be able to strip people of their citizenship and send them home. They brought 80,000 Somalis to Minneapolis. There is no justification for this, no reason why they should be here. To be honest, no one has ever explained why this happened except for the constant and complete fraud in the ecosystem that keeps electing Democrats in this state. This was done under Barack Obama. It was done to serve as a model for the rest of the country.
Who is running and will be running the FBI? When it's necessary not to imprison, but to deport and to get our money back. In other words, yes, imprisoning is also necessary, but sending them home so they can enjoy what they've stolen doesn't seem like a very good idea to me.
And what do you think about the continuation? The official cited 78 criminal charges against Somali fraudsters who stole COVID payments as an example of what's ahead. I asked them about Act Blue donations, Democratic candidates, and fraudulent Somali kindergartens. And the official told me that the FBI is investigating Act Blue and that I should follow the money. So we discovered and saw that people are looking into Act Blue donations, Act Blue, and finding that these fraudulent Somali kindergartens are making massive donations to Democratic candidates across the country. Are they doing this to ensure that more Somalis are elected to Congress? So they can pass more welfare bills, so they can increase social security payments, and so they can get more money. This is a completely parasitic operation. It's parasitic. It's a parasite that has to suck the blood and life force out of its host. And that's exactly what this is. They're here. They've come here. 78 Somalis in America are on welfare.
In addition to the billions, 78 migrants from Somalia are receiving $1 billion in government assistance. That's for everything we need to pay for there. Apartments, food, medicine, transportation. Wonderful, right? Yeah? So they brought people here who immediately became a burden to us. They didn't help us with anything. They just became a burden.
And Tim Yoles was obviously well aware of this. Tim Yoles is a real fraud because this is the plain truth. It's just the tip of a huge iceberg of fraud that Elon Musk was investigating. And by the way, this is a very common phenomenon.
Interestingly, the governor of Minnesota built his defense against accusations of complicity or negligence on blaming the Republicans. Now listen to this remarkable nonsense. What exactly are the Republicans guilty of?
Republicans in the legislature aren't interested in solving this. Oh my God, if this gets resolved now early in the year, it would be terrible for them. Then what would they run on?
So the Republicans, who are in the minority in Minnesota and therefore don't decide anything, it turns out they don't want to stop the looting of the country because you'll never guess, never, because if the looting stops, then the Republicans will have nothing to talk about during the elections. That's why I think that even in 4th grade, you could come up with a better explanation for why you were late to school. And also Tim Walz, whom the Democrats nominated as a candidate for Vice President of the United States in 2024, along with Kamala
Harris wrote the following: Minnesota's economy can't function without childcare workers, so we're raising their wages.
Do you even realize how dumb he is? It's beyond any limits, even of stupidity. He's told that all the kindergartens, all the kitchens for kids, and the day sanatoriums for the elderly are a complete scam, and instead of investigating, he responds by saying, "We'll just raise their pay."
And you want to tell me that this guy had no idea what was going on in his state? How over $9 billion is just the tip of the iceberg, stolen from hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens, and these are real American citizens. And your mayor eats Somali food, dances Somali dances, and speaks Somali like we're in the middle of some third-rate dump? I mean, what is even going on? This is the United States of America. What's happening there? This person deserves federal prosecution and a full prison jumpsuit. I think Trump is just as fed up as we are. And I actually think that in 2026, because we're heading into the midterm elections, we'll finally see accountability. This man seriously believed that Tim Walz, nicknamed Tampon, deserved to be the second in command of the greatest country the world has ever known, the United States of America. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the Democrats, I don't know what will.
But the Democrats, both in Minnesota and in Washington, knew about the fraud. I think they were involved. But how do we know that they knew? It's very simple. We look on the internet, we check the internet.
We repeat it again. We warned the Democrats and Kamala Harris about Tim Walz before he was chosen as the vice presidential candidate. That was before the news about fraud in Minnesota came out. No one responded. Democrats, please think about your values. Fighting fraud and corruption is not just a matter for one political party. Tim Walz has caused massive damage to our state and its agencies. This comes from hardworking taxpayers, law-abiding citizens, and people who work every day. They see it daily. They warned Kamala about this every day. He caused great harm to our state, and the agencies targeted whistleblowers and those fighting fraud. Now they're showing evidence. Since Democrats never do, here is the evidence. Every agency marked with a date also has notes for the whistleblower, which are equivalent.
That is, even before the 1924 election, the Democratic Party knew everything, and not only did not stop the looting, but also nominated the person who covered for the thieves to become the second most powerful person in the most powerful country in the world. But I want to show you one more thing. I want to show you the perspective of the Somalis themselves.
To be continued. I'm shocked Trump is attacking us. He should be thanking us for several reasons, which I'll explain. We represent what the American dream can be. For example, Somali Americans, and this saddens me, though I know it's also funny, Somalis,
who are kind of the class clowns, but at the same time, they're also straight A students, Somalis. They're so successful in Minnesota. I go to Minnesota several times a year and always leave feeling so inspired. There are only Somali law firms, Somali pharmacies, Somali everything you can imagine. And it's so inspiring to see what my community has been able to accomplish in just 30 years. We came to this country not knowing English or much else. As Black Muslim immigrants, we've achieved great success. That's worthy of applause. I want Trump to stand up and applaud us, because it's shocking. Literally, my friend moved to Minnesota and said that during her childbirth, all the staff, midwife, doctors, nurses, were Somali. It's great to see and should be celebrated, right? Secondly, Trump, you should thank my people for giving a random Midwestern state so much influence and money. Besides Chicago, I don't believe Minnesota's tourism is growing due to Somali Americans. People like me clearly deserve thanks, since Minnesota would be nothing without Somalis moving there. To be honest, we made this state prosperous and beautiful for the world. So you should thank us, and if you want, donate Minnesota to Somalia. That's a pretty good trade.
I even felt like dropping everything, going to Somalia, finding her, and sincerely thanking her from the bottom of my heart.
We've already heard all this. People always laugh at Somalia. Yeah, but I still consider myself better than everyone else. God made me Somali, and I'm fine. Plus, I'm a Somali American, bro. Like, I'm winning on both sides. Well, yeah, it's just nice to see that everyone realizes that Somalis are very funny, very confident, and that will never change. It hasn't changed since the colonial times. Baby, and that won't change just because someone decided to laugh at us now. We're actually winning this war. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh my God, I can't imagine what that could mean. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt because she's young, she looks like a kid, and she has no idea what she's talking about. If they're so confident and always succeed when they come to this country and bring so much with them, why are you running from your own country? Why didn't you do that in your own country? And then, have you seen Somalia lately? Somalic is literally the fourth world, not even third world. It's a whole, a fourth world whole. So why didn't you turn your country into America too if you're so inventive, creative, and innovative? I don't know, but what stood out is she's just a child, so there's no point in responding. However, what was interesting, Because it's connected to Islam, to the very, destructive force, one of the most destructive forces in human history. Everything that Islam touched turned into absolute garbage. She said that we're winning the war. What does that mean? What war? Charlie Kirk said that Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. I'm inclined to agree with that, but I would go even further. I don't think Islam is compatible with any civilization, east, west, north, or south. It doesn't matter. Look at any country that is immersed in Islamic customs. And we're not talking about the United Arab Emirates. They're practically capitalists, and they're completely for America and Western ideals and so on. 99 of them have gone back to the Stone Age. There's hunger, oppression, poverty, war, struggle, bloodshed, economic collapse. No one has benefited from this ideology.
By the way, I'm curious, what do you think about Islam, International Organization for Standardization, the existence of Islam and other ideologies, or about how Islam has helped the countries where its practice develop over the last 2 or 3 centuries to increase the well-being and security of citizens? How has Islam brought order, peace, freedom, and everything else that each of us strives for? Now, ladies and gentlemen, the FBI has deployed massive resources for the finale. At the same time, fraud was discovered in Minnesota, Nebraska, California, Illinois, and Washington. These are all immigrant groups, united by their origin, knowing that their own people won't betray them, not because they love each other so much, but because all their relatives and loved ones, both here and in Somalia, would simply be destroyed. If you like this content, subscribe and hit the bell and you'll get interesting stories every day. See you next time.